For disease transmission to happen, the germs inside one person have to find a way to infect someone new. Previously, we discussed how this is possible through direct contact and through breathing in respiratory particles. Now we're going to divide things up to consider what might happen if two people are standing close together versus what can happen if we're standing really far apart in a room. When you breathe out, your breath travels in what we call a plume. Think of someone who has bad breath. If you get really close to them, you can smell it. That's their breath plume. So what do? You back up and the smell goes down. This is because the breath plume is mixing with the air in a process known as dilution. That doesn't mean that the stinky breath molecules go away, only that their concentration goes down, and so we don't notice them as much. It's a very similar thing with the particles that we exhale. Their concentration is highest right where we exhale, and then it goes down as you get further away. In fact, the concentration goes down very fast with distance. If you're standing just 1 foot away from someone, which is really much too close for comfort, the concentration of particles will go down by about a factor of 5. That is, the concentration will be about 20% of what it was right at their mouth. But if you move 2 feet away from them, the concentration will go down more like a factor of 10, so the concentration is 10% of what it was at their mouth. And if you move 6 feet away, it's more like a factor of 30 or so, or down to just 3% of what it was at their mouth. It's also the case that the air in the particles slow down as they move away from a person as they're mixed into the rest of the air in the room. At some distance, the air currents in the room will entirely disrupt the breath plume and mix everything together. Considering all of this, we therefore tend to think about processes at 2 distances. First is at short distances, or what we call close contact, meaning close to a person where there is a breath plume. And then secondly, the processes that occur at longer distances, where our breath plume has been mixed into the room. For short distances, there's 2 important processes that contribute to disease transmission. One is the direct deposition of really big germ-carrying particles onto another person. Deposition means that the particles land on a surface, and this only happens in close contact for really big particles when they're traveling fast. Think of a time you were standing close to someone when they sneezed, and you could see little droplets and maybe even felt them landing on you. Not nice, right? We're most concerned if those large particles land in your mouth, nose, or even our eyes, since this gives a pathway for germs to get inside and infect us. If they land on our skin or clothes, the chances of infection are much lower. The second important process in the short range is inhalation of germ-carrying particles by another person. When we inhale air, we breathe in all the things in the air, including particles. As the air and the particles make their way through all the twists and turns of our respiratory system, first through our mouth and our nose, then through our throat, to our windpipe, and eventually to our lungs, there's a chance that the particles will deposit on the surfaces inside our body. In this way, the germs can be directly introduced into our respiratory system, where they have a chance of making us sick. At longer distances, inhalation of germ-carrying particles is also the most important process that leads to disease transmission. The process is identical to what happens in close contact. The only difference is that the concentration of potential germ-carrying particles in the inhaled air is almost always going to be lower the farther we get from a person because their breath plume is diluted into the entire room. Of course, we also need to consider the amount of time that people spend in a space, whether in close contact or at further distances. The longer you spend in a given space, the more germ-carrying particles you're likely to inhale.